Okay. You know, Nealie, there were so many emotions that I had while reading your book. It's a fantastic book, and you have
Thank you.
a beautiful gift and talent there. From anger to sadness, tears, hope, joy. And I was cheering you and Lily and your family on, throughout the book. And, God took the rest. So what'd you say about that?
Well, I would have welcomed any prayers when we were going through that. And there were a lot of times where I did call people and just say, hey, please pray, because
Mm-hmm.
things would get better when people were praying. But I had mentioned that with a condition like this that's lifelong, sometimes people get tired of praying because it never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had cancer and you asked someone to pray, well, you'd either get better or you die eventually. But with this, it was like forever, just
Mm-hmm.
constant needing help.
Mm-hmm.
So, amen.
Okay. You know, Nealie, there were so many emotions that I had while reading your book. It's a fantastic book, and you have
Thank you.
a beautiful gift and talent there. From anger to sadness, tears, hope, joy. And I was cheering you and Lily and your family on, throughout the book. And, God took the rest. So what'd you say about that?
Well, I would have welcomed any prayers when we were going through that. And there were a lot of times where I did call people and just say, hey, please pray, because
Mm-hmm.
things would get better when people were praying. But I had mentioned that with a condition like this that's lifelong, sometimes people get tired of praying because it never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had cancer and you asked someone to pray, well, you'd either get better or you die eventually. But with this, it was like forever, just
Mm-hmm.
constant needing help.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Your parents, wonderful people, and your mom's still alive. They fostered children. Was that part of the impetus for you and Bruce to do the same?
when they did that, my own girls were, I'm thinking maybe 8 and 12. So I didn't think a whole lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
But once my girls were more like maybe 14 and 18, something like that, they didn't need me much. At least I didn't think they needed me much. And I had always wished we had had a third daughter.
Okay.
So this is a true story. All my stuff's true stories. But so what I did was I saw this advertisement for an orphanage, and I don't even remember what state it was in, but it wasn't on the East Coast. Anyway, and they showed pictures of all these kids. They were at the
Mm-hmm.
orphanage, and it was here in the States. So I wrote them a letter, and I said, we have 5 bedrooms, and my girls are getting grown up, and I'd really like to adopt one of your female orphans here. And I wrote a real nice letter. And about a month later, it was returned unopened, and it said not deliverable to this address or something like that. And I was just really disappointed because
Mm-hmm.
I thought, sure, that's how um, that would work out. That would help somebody, and it would, be a blessing to our family too.
Sure.
So with that, that door slammed in my face. That's when I started thinking about, well, mom and dad did foster for a while. I wonder about that because, that would help
Mm-hmm.
somebody, you know. Anyway, so that's kind of a long way of explaining how you know,
Sure.
how we started.
You know, you had Lily for what, about 7 years, from about 6 to 13.
Hmm.
So tell us how she came into your life, if you would, please.
Well, we were new foster parents. We had one young lady who was 13 for a few months, and it was temporary. We were helping the parents who had adopted this young girl to have like a reprieve while we worked with the young girl before we gave her back. So she was just kind of passing through, okay? And we got a phone call then about a little girl who was 6, who was at Columbia Children's, and she had been in many foster homes. And they wanted to know if we could keep her for 14 days once she was discharged. And at the end of the 14 days, she was going to be admitted to a residential facility because she had blown out all her foster homes and she was considered dangerous and would hurt pets and people, and just it was her last chance. And I'm like, well, Bruce agreed we could do anything for 14 days.
Sure.
We really could. Who couldn't?
And in reading the book, in terms of all the symptoms and underlying causes that come with reactive attachment disorder, it appears to me that Lilly had probably one of the most extreme forms of this. And we know that this comes from when a child suffers, lack of attachment, usually with the parents, or abuse, and they're not nurtured and caressed, in their lives. And so, you've got a lot of experience because Lilly is still in your life, as she's pushing 30. And so, what have you learned, about this over the last 25 years?
Well, at one point I thought, I wrote about this because a college student that was wanting to be a special education teacher begged me. He did a report on Lilly, what I had told him, and he begged me to write a book because he said there's nothing for us as students to study, real life, anything. And so, a lot of people had told me that in the years before, and I just didn't want to, because to me it was why. But he gave me a why and made it. I was like, yeah, people do need to know about this. And because a lot of the professionals we went to for help they were clueless. They were looking at us for the answers. And we were really surprised. We kind of felt like maybe we were trailblazers in a way, but she couldn't have been the first kid ever. And I know she wasn't that ever had it. But I think maybe in our town, maybe, because I know at the foster agency, they had never had a kid like her before. I mean, they wouldn't even transport her. Caseworkers refused to transport her unless there was another person in the car.
Right. And reading your book, a typical day there was, you just really didn't know what to expect. I mean, you had series of days where Lilly was pleasant and cooperative, if you will, versus a few versus weeks and weeks and weeks of terror. I mean, that's how it seemed to be terror and unpredictability, and running across highways and just leaving and escaping, and so what a gift that you were able to provide Lilly at this time. And I know she bounced around a lot of different places, and knowing you and your personality, you wanted to you didn't want that for her. You wanted some stability. And so tell us how your faith was instrumental and on your journey.
Well, I doubt we would have done it if we hadn't had faith in God,
Mm-hmm.
just because it was just pretty scary. But I believe God is a God of miracles, and the
Mm-hmm.
miracles we read about really happened. So why can't more miracles happen? And God's power and strength is for here and today. And a lot of times I wished we would have had more of that, power and strength, but he gave us enough to get through, you know. And our faith in God also convicted us not to give up on her.
Mm-hmm. We talked about last night as we were reviewing for this fireside chat, the fact that, there was a litany of angels, protecting Lily Angel, right? Yeah, so, as a medical professional, reading the book and being bounced around in different facilities and, certainly a lack of continuity of care. Some of it, it's just part of the way the system is. It's a broken system, for special needs and mental health. We know that. It appeared that many of the counselors, showed a lot of compassion and reflected in your book and the sessions with Therapeutical. It seemed like the medicines that I saw Lily on were just powerful medicines, and for a young girl, and certainly with lots of different side effects and all. And what was your thoughts on all those medications? And I know that's not your expertise, but do you feel that maybe at times she was over medicated and maybe giving a little bit of a drug holiday?
I guess because on the home front, it took everything we had just to get through every day, that when we would go to those appointments, I just would kind of just put her there, not really sit her on the desk, but you know what I mean? It would be like, help us.
Right.
What can you do? And I would, especially early on, not question anything. The only time I really questioned things was if she were to get tremors or some kind of physical symptom that I could see. And then, boy, I was on the phone.
Sure.
But when they weren't manifesting, like things she might have been taking and I didn't really notice, sometimes it was like she was taking nothing because nothing was helping,
Sure.
But if she were to have tics or shaking or things like that, I would become very alarmed. And no, they never gave her a holiday, the way you term it.
Sure.
Nowadays, if she wanted to refuse her meds, I would back her on that.
Sure.
They still have me sign off on her meds, but she's the one that has to swallow them. And she's thought many times, maybe I don't want to take this anymore. It's like, that's fine with me. She's becoming her own person as an adult. Really neat to see.
Yes. There was victories, you didn't have to tie her up in the car and the contraption so she couldn't escape. She no longer was doing that. So there was these small victories, throughout
that. That was a huge victory.
Well, that was a huge victory. That's true.
That was huge.
The dangers of all that, right? Good point. That was a huge victory. And, and something that struck me, and we talked about it last night with your grandson, Pete, and Lily's younger sister, Tina, that, Lily was violent towards you and Bruce and caregivers and people of authority, but never with Pete or her sister, Tina. Why do you think that was?
Well, with Pete, he was several years younger than her. Maybe, trying to think, she was probably maybe 7 when he was born. So she she knew how vulnerable he was.
Okay.
And he was also a novelty. He was the first little baby, and she was very protective of him. With her sister, she wasn't violent, but she was uh, very manipulative and domineering, and she restricted her sister from normal development just by grabbing toys her sister had all the time, just domineering, and it wasn't healthy.
Okay. Okay. Now, there was a lot of humor in the book too, and Nealie, you have a great sense of humor. I've known you for over 50 years, and it was nice to see that, and laughter is and humor is good medicine. And one day you told Lily, "Oh, your shoes are on the wrong feet," and she said, "I know. Someday I will be normal." And you knelt down and told her, "You are normal," and I could just see you doing that. "You are normal to me, and I love you." What do you remember that moment?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And
Oh
how
yeah.
did and reflect on that, please.
Oh, she was just such a character. The stuff she'd wear, and the shoes on the wrong feet, and the food on her shirt, and the crooked glasses, and just I'd always fix her up nice, and within hours looked like somebody pulled her out of a dumpster.
Yeah.
But she didn't care about any of that, but she did like when we'd get her fixed up. It just wouldn't last long. But yeah, I remember so many times when she just wanted to be a kid. She just wanted to go out and play. She just wanted to be accepted by the neighbor kids, just normal kid stuff. But those kind of things didn't happen very often for her.
Yeah. God was definitely involved, manifested in his love, through you and Bruce and your family in raising Lily. Who did she say that was?
Yeah, really low time for all of us, and very, very low and depressing time. And she took a sheet of paper, and she drew a huge circle on it. There was nothing left on the paper except little, the corners. It was a circle, and she put the eyes, and I said, "Who is that? Or what is that?" And she said, "It's God." And she said, "God is a big God." And that's why she drew him so big, his face on that paper.
Nice.
And it was like, wow, I needed to hear that. Because I was just getting really down about how things were going. And it was just really something to have that come from her.
Yes. And there was quite a few God moments through the book that she would reflect on that. Made me know that God was there, and his love and that nurturing, not that it was easy. I'm not saying that, but those are, like, I guess I call those signals of grace that are given to you. Now, Lily lived with you for about 7 years before it came to the point that it was no longer safe, for her to be in your care, and that you couldn't provide her everything she needed. And I know that was a tough time, for you in the book. But you realize they're right. This is the best thing for Lily. Not, we have to do this for Lily. And and your quote was, "But we could love her and stick by her." And by sticking by her, how many, you did that for those 7 years, and then another, she's pushing 30, so she's been in your life for almost 25 years.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah. And so tell us the interactions you have with her now, and how that's going, and maybe some of the progress that she's made since, over the last 10 to 15 years.
Well, like we mentioned, she can ride in a car now.
Right.
I still won't take her anywhere by myself. And I think that's just because of shell shock or something like that.
Sure, sure.
um, I always have Bruce drive if, and she knows Mom doesn't take me anywhere by herself. I don't know. But yeah, that's huge,
Sure,
and she can go
sure.
in restaurants with us, and um, funny things happen sometimes at restaurants. I'm
Right.
always watching, where'd she, oh dear, she just went to the restroom. I wonder who else is in there. Or, that like the time there was a little girl that couldn't get out of the restroom stall. And I guess Lily crawled under under the door
Yeah.
into the stall with the girl and unlocked it. And the girl was so scared. Anyway, so Lily
Yeah.
comes out and told me what happened, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, just you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
But she has a good heart. I know one of the things she does that is huge is, and this is good, is she apologizes and she shows remorse. And
Yeah.
that's something that took a long time to happen. But
Yeah.
now she's so quick to do that now. Like
Wow.
yesterday, she was talking to Bruce on the phone and they had a difference of opinion. And she said, well, I'm going to hang up now because I'm really getting mad at you. So she hung up. But then half an hour later, she called back to say she
Mhm.
was sorry. And that's just such progress. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. I know you talk to her every day, and I know you try to get as many visits as you can amongst this COVID. It's been a little bit of a challenge you shared, and it just it's just this story just needs to be told. We all have a story. It just needs to be told for other people to not feel maybe alone or isolated. That there is hope out there because with not only with your book, you also have a companion curriculum workbook. And so that's a beautiful gift that you've also were able to develop over this course of this time, to share your experience. And if it helps other
Yeah.
people, that's what it's meant to do. And what you say at the end is our commitment to her holds fast because I believe very much in hope and love and the goodness of God. And I know how important God is in your life, Nealie, and your family, and He's directing all of this. We don't understand it all and why some things happen. We know we've all been affected that way. But Nealie, this was just a beautiful gift that you've been able to give us that we can share. We can share this on our platform, and
Thank
and
you.
you bet. And so I know your book's available on Amazon. Is there other ways that people can reach out to your book, or is that the best way for them to
That'd be the
access this?
best way.
Okay. And so I hope people enjoy it as much as I did, and it can help families and children and the medical community, because that was you're
Yeah.
never too old to learn, and I learned a lot by doing the
Yeah.
research and having this conversation. Kai or Ein, do you have any questions?
Oh, actually, I don't have any.
Okay.
I don't have a question, Dr. George, but I just want to say that I really admire you,
Mhm.
Neely, as a mom, as a woman, as a daughter of God, because, well, while listening to your conversation, I realized that all of us, need this someone, a person who will not give up on us.
Mm.
And you're not related to Lily by blood, but still, you did your part when God assigned you, if I would say,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good
to
way of saying it.
live. Um, and I only have one child, and we all have tough moments. Not all days are good, but you know, when you're having a tough time and at the same time there's a person that you have to take care of, it's really challenging. And if there is no God, it will really be difficult. And I would say it's really grace, you know, grace upon grace every day from the Lord, you know, that sustains you and your family. And so I really admire the heart, that very compassionate heart that you have for Lily. And it's very inspiring, because there are times that, you know, I ask God, like, I think I'm not doing well as a mom, but, you know, it's always God who will remind us that it's not strength, but really God. So I'm grateful to hear that you did not give up and that you continue to allow God to sustain you and your family. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this with the world.
Yes. Ayn, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have questions as well, but well, Kai said everything.
Did it well.
But to add to that, I'm grateful and I'm thankful that you put this out to the world. I think to share this story, but I think it's hard to personally share your story out, and for you to do this will help a lot of people. And since I'm not a mom yet, this inspires me, and I hope when I do become a mom, I get to apply the things that I've learned here. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Lots of courage. Lots of courage. You know, and we're going to give it all glory to God. That's our
Amen.
fifth objective, you know, when we go through our objectives. And so, you know, he picks us, he equips us when he chooses us. And, you know, to Kai's point, some days are better than others, but all days are good, you know, and you know, we're working for the kingdom. So, Nealie, do you have any last minute or last closing comments you'd like to share?
Not specifically, no.
Okay.
I could talk and talk and talk, but no.
Okay. Well, you know, we thank you for the privilege of your time, and I think Kai and Ayn, as women, you know, added some beautiful admiration, strength, you know, all those things that are qualities of virtuous women, you know, and we this women presentation not long ago, and so we're gonna call you there, Nealie, a virtuous woman, and you know, and that's a wonderful gift. So thank you for the privilege of your time.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Yeah. Bye, Nealie. God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Tell
Thank
Lucy
you.
said hi.